Thank you all very much. It is an honor to be with you, and it's not typical that I close out the session, the conference. It's kind of normally happens on the front end, and so hopefully a lot of the information that I share with you won't necessarily be repeat. I know that you've attended a number of breakout sessions, and you've gotten some really good information from our staff. But if it happens to run short, I know you won't be disappointed. Okay. I was really encouraged when I saw this. The theme of this particular conference is creating a positive image for public education. Because guys, public education is, to me, one of the greatest assets that we have in our state. It's not perfect. We all know that. But guys, it's pretty dang good. And you guys are doing really, really good work right now in face of some very challenging circumstances. More challenging than I ever faced as a teacher or principal. So I commend you on that. And then let me share this with you too. When I talk about, it's pretty good. We're not perfect. We're not where we need to be, but we're headed in the right direction. I just had an incredible opportunity. This summer, this past spring, we hosted about 26 Korean educators in our state. They were in our schools, most of them in the metro Atlanta area where we have a significant Korean population. They were with us for 3 months in our classrooms with our teachers, with our leaders. Some of you in here may have been, they may have been in your schools. But Korea is one of those top educational countries in the world when you look at all the test data and the scores and student performance and that type of thing. But guys, they left here impressed. They left here so impressed that they invited me to come and speak to an innovative, a conference on education innovation in Korea. And I just returned from there Saturday. And the one thing that they were so impressed with in our schools was the relationship between our teachers and our students. They wanted to understand, how is it that our children wanted to be in school? And that's pretty significant. And to me, that communicates a great deal, because we talk a lot about rigor. We talk about the Common Core state standards, and we talk about the level of rigor. We talk about relevance with career pathways. But guys, the vehicle that makes both of those possible is the relationship between that teacher in the classroom and that student. I was not the easiest English teacher. Most of my kids did, they just like yours, probably they could think of 1,000 other places they wanted to be than sitting in my classroom that day. But once they understood that I cared about them as a person and I cared about what happened to them, I would have students that would run through a wall for me. And they would do whatever I asked of them because of that relationship piece. Relationship makes rigor and relevance possible. All right, enough preaching. Before I get started on remarks, let me remind you, and I think you've received this information here, of an upcoming conference this fall. The National Dropout Prevention Network Conference is being hosted in Atlanta, November the 3rd through the 6th. Guys, this is going to be an exciting conference. If you've not had the opportunity to register, please go to their website. That writing is probably a little bit difficult to read in white, but those are some of your registration fees. I know that you have received some information already about a specific day of the conference that is set aside for board members, and there is board member training that's being provided for your board members. There is a discounted fee for them to participate. Dr. Bill Bennett will be one of our keynotes at the conference, and he will actually be having lunch on Monday with your board members, kind of a chat and chew kind of thing. So that'll be a good opportunity for your board members as well. So I encourage you, if you've not already had the opportunity to move on that, please do so. It's going to be a great conference. All right, let's talk a little bit about the College and Career Ready Performance Index. You all received your results back in early May based on 2012 data. Now, hopefully you're using that as a means for school improvement. You're looking at your results, you're looking at those indicators, you're looking at your strengths, you're looking at your weaknesses, and that's the way it was designed. It was designed to be a roadmap. Where are we falling short? Because it's more than just a test score. We all know that. So it's designed there to help lead you to school improvement. Now, as we move forward with the CCRPI, this past Friday, July 12th, you should have received, superintendents should have received an email of calendar events related to CCRPI. There will be 4 workshops coming up. We don't have the dates set on that yet. As soon as we get those dates set, we will get those out to you. But those workshops are designed to go over with you CCRPI going forward, 2013 information, when we're going to release those results, deadlines, timelines on verifying your data and all of that. So those dates will be coming to you soon. Please check your email boxes for those. And lastly, thinking about CCRPI, as you know, last year in our waiver, we were granted a conditional waiver because really what we had asked for was a year to study, to look at our data, see how it worked, and that's pretty much what we were granted. And so now we have to resubmit all of the 2012 data of CCRPI for our extension of approval of our waiver into 2013. And we have done that. We have submitted that. And guys, we're expecting any day now, by the end of this week, we should have what we are being led to believe approval of our waiver for the coming school year. But as soon as we get that, we will let you know. Let me shift gears into something that I know that many of you are probably have a lot of angst about right now. Coordinate algebra and the EOCT and the results of that EOCT. You know, I've heard the concerns. I've heard the questions. Is the test valid? Is it reliable? Does it align to the standards? You know, our students said, you know, the questions didn't reflect. And guys, we had an outside party do an alignment study of the test. And that person is a mathematics instructor with a history in assessment development. And we have been reassured that the test is aligned, okay? That being said, well, how do you explain the performance? How do you explain students going from 85% or whatever it is passing the 8th grade CRCT in mathematics to 37% passing the 9th grade EOCT coordinate algebra test? Several things, and superintendents have heard me talk about this. RESA folks have heard me discuss this. One, this is a new level of rigor in our assessments. As we approach 2014, 2015, whether we're participating in PARC or whether we're participating in something else, that's still yet to be seen. But you guys may or may not know, whatever test that we use at the state level, like currently our EOCTs and our CRCTs, whatever test we use for our federal accountability, we have to submit those to USED, the Department of USED, and they go through a peer review process. And our tests have to be approved for federal accountability. Coming in 2014-15, there is a new level of criteria or expectations for those assessments. All right, so whether we're PARC or something else, the test will be very different than they have been in the past. We are being required to raise those standards, okay? So looking at the EOCT, because it was a completely new course and a new test, rather than redesign it now and then design it again in another year and a half, we went ahead and designed that test at that new level of expectation, okay? So it's a new level of rigor. Additionally, when we look at cut scores, you know, we've talked about, well, was the cut score raised? Was the cut score the same? What's important to know is that what we traditionally, when you look at NAEP studies, what we have traditionally expected of our students to pass our state assessments, when you look at that NAEP alignment study, we don't fare too well as far as what is proficient on NAEP and how that compares with what our expectation is on our state test. So that's the other thing that we have to keep in mind as we move towards 2014-15, whether we're in park or not. If we are in park, guys, there's a national cut score. It's going to be the same for every state in the country, and we're not there. Our level of expectation is just not there. And so it was kind of a perfect storm, and I understand that. And I know it's not easy, and it doesn't make it easy to communicate, but what is important to also know is that the results of this are actually reflective. There really is only one other test that we administer at this grade level to every student in the state, and that's the PSAT. That has a college-ready cut score already determined, because that's what we're moving toward as an indicator of college readiness in these cut scores and student performance. When you look at the PSAT and what the college-ready cut score is on the PSAT, I believe it's 44 in mathematics. I'm maybe off on that. But the point is, the percentage of students, 10th graders, who took the PSAT last year, who tested at that college-ready cut score on the PSAT was 34%. So this is actually rather reflective of current performance of where we are when we talk about a cut score that's college ready. And so when we talk about and we have a discussion with communities and parents about how can we go from 85% passing the CRCT to this, one, we're talking about two very different tests. We don't have a college ready cut score for our 8th grade CRCT. You really can't compare those two. So, and I know that doesn't make it easy for you guys, and I apologize. But we did have several meetings with some of your leadership as superintendents, as RESA folks, and as principals. We are working on some additional resources for you. Our staff is working on those. We just had a meeting before we came into here with some really great ideas. We have some schools that scored very well on the EOCT. We're going to capitalize on those. We're going to find out what they did. Some of the challenges that we hear from, that we're hearing back from students, that maybe students gave feedback to teachers and teachers are talking with us, is the questions, the literacy that's required, the length of the question, the reading that was involved. There was not enough time to take the test. Those are valid. While the number of words weren't necessarily increased, the comprehension level that's required to understand that problem did increase. And that's what we're talking about, the expectations on these new tests. Literacy is going to cut across all content areas. You're not going to be able to perform at the same level on a math test with a plug and chug as you have in the past, because it's going to be more than that. You're going to have to be able to apply those formulas and know how to use them and be able to comprehend a word problem to know exactly what are they asking for and what information is provided in this problem that will help me get to the solution. So it's what we're going to do, as in talking about resources, what we talked about, one of the things that we would like to be able to provide for you are just some little video vignettes that take some of these sample questions. We've talked about releasing some. I've had requests, go ahead and release the test. Let us see the test. Let us see the question. Guys, that's a question and a matter of economics for us. Our testing budget will not allow us to develop a whole new test. We don't have the money for that. So we can't release the test, but we will be able to release some items. And so we'll be working on that, and hopefully you'll have those by the fall. But some little video vignettes where you have a teacher looking at one of these problems where the reading comprehension is maybe a little bit more elevated than we're used to, and having the teacher work through that problem and show you where the key words are, the key phrases are, to know how to solve this problem and where the information is within it, so that it can be a resource to your teachers and then a resource to your students to help prepare them for the level of reading and the expectation, the complexities that they'll see on that new test. So moving forward, we've talked about PARCC, and I'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. I know that this has implications for you across the board with your CCRPI scores, with your teacher evaluations. This impacts a lot, and we know that. And we are listening. to your leaders and to your superintendents, your principals, and to RESA folks about things that they need. What could we do to better serve you and help you in communications with your districts, and we're going to do all that we can to help you with that. All right, let's move into CRCT for just a moment. Your scores you've received fairly recently. The 2013 test was aligned to new content standards. Now, the cut scores were not reset to reflect the higher level of expectation to the standards. But guys, that's coming. If you look at what's happened, learn from the EOCT this year, because by 2014-15, all of our tests will change and the expectations will change. And it might be good to go ahead and be thinking about that and communicating that to the folks in your communities. All right, but what we did change, a panel of Georgia educators recommended a system of readiness indicators across grades 3 through 8 designed to inform instructional decision making. Now, those indicators are designed to send signals to stakeholders about where students are relative to expectations in our standards. So we've kind of moved away from does not meet, meets, exceeds, okay, to indicators that are a little bit more descriptive in where students are on the continuum of meeting standards. These indicators are designed to provide feedback about our preparedness for the increase in rigor and expectations for student achievement on the horizon. And the feedback will consist of the percentage of students who achieved each readiness level at state, district, and school levels. And here are those indicators. Needs additional support. This student has demonstrated that his or her command of knowledge and skills described in the CCGPS warrants additional instructional supports. So it's not you failed. It's not you didn't meet. It sends a more clear message that looking at meeting these standards, your student has demonstrated that their command and understanding needs some additional support to get there, okay? On track, the student has demonstrated that his or her command of knowledge and skills is sufficient, and the student is on track for success at the next level. And then commendable, the student has demonstrated that his or her command of the knowledge and skills described in CCGPS is exemplary. Now, I'll tell you that at the national level with PARC and the PARC Consortium, that the indicators have already been defined. They've already kind of been set, and they don't use 3 performance levels. There are 5 performance levels. So as we move forward, if we participate in PARC, we're going to be moving from 3 performance levels to 5. If we don't participate in PARC and we're in a Plan B situation with a handful of other states or something on our own, then we may be looking at something similar so that we could have a similar type of test with the PARC Consortium. Okay. Common Core Georgia Performance Standards. There is a lot of noise right now, has been for several months, and it's not just here, it is across the nation, about Common Core. And is this a federal government takeover of education? And it's a groundswell. You guys have probably all heard it in your community, some of you maybe more than others. One of the things that we're doing right now at the State Department is we have finished year 1 implementation of Common Core. And with any new initiative, I think it's always good to get feedback. All right? So I've worked with our RESAs. They have volunteered to work with you. One of the areas where I think that we can do a better job is getting feedback from teachers. Oftentimes, when we communicate with you, when I communicate with you, or when our agency communicates with you, it's through your superintendent, as it should be, or principals, but it's not very often that we get down to the teacher level. So one of the things that RESAs have volunteered to help us with is getting feedback from teachers. We're working on a survey, creating a survey of after year 1 implementation, what went well, what didn't go well, are these standards the right standards, are they aligned in the correct place, and then let's get that feedback. And if there is evidence from our folks that we need to make some shifts, then we'll make some shifts. We're not backing away from the Common Core. but we are going to reserve the right to make the standards what we need them to be for our children. And if there is, based on implementation of year one, a need to realign some things and shift some things, we'll have that discussion. I don't want to be closed-minded to the fact that maybe we didn't get some things right the first year. Does that make sense? All right. And ultimately, guys, I don't care what we call it. I think the whole term Common Core is inflammatory. I don't think it's salvageable at this point. I would just like to call them we can keep the acronym. We can call it College and Career Ready Georgia Performance Standards. We can still have CCGPS. So I'm probably not going to be using the term Common Core very much, just because it's just a little bit. I think it's beyond salvaging, to be honest with you. And we can continue to move forward with rigorous college and career ready standards, whatever we call them. Okay. All right. I said I was going to discuss some issues with Park and where we are with Park. I don't think for many of you who read the AJC that this will be news to you. But as a state, we continue to have concerns about the cost of participation in Park. It's going to be extremely expensive. I can't tell you exact figures at this point. I know that as a governing board, we adopted maximum cost estimates, that the cost of the test would not exceed a certain level. I know that very soon that Park will be releasing what those cost projections are, and they're fairly close to what those maximum limits were. I do know that it will be very costly to the state, much more than what we